So as a kid growing up, I had this globe in my room, not too unlike this one, actually. And to entertain myself, I would just spend a long time like looking over different parts of the globe. I'd find it really interesting what cities they chose to list on there. You know, I would look at a place like Algeria and see these different cities that you actually never really hear about. And I just get really curious about what's life like over there. This more or less kickstarted my interest in, I don't know, what you might call obscure countries. I would at least look into countries that I never heard people talk much about and just start to wonder about life there, you know, and this was pre-internet, so I couldn't exactly just start looking up images of stuff. I would just wonder, yeah, what's going on in Mauritania? I think it just always seemed odd to me that, yeah, there were places in this world where people lived, oftentimes millions of people, that we just weren't paying any attention to, you know? When we thought about the world, we would just think of it from the same vantage points over and over. Europe, US, Japan. But I want to know about the view from Gabon, or Turkmenistan, or I don't know, Uruguay? Anyway, I very recently had the chance to visit one of those countries, and it just so happened to be my 50th country. So, come along with me and let's check that out. Alright, I'm headed out to my 50th country. Come along with me to Suriname. Good morning, Suriname. So I don't really know what it is, but I get like extra excited getting to visit countries that feel frequently overlooked or under the radar. Some of it is just like, you know, I can't believe something as large as a whole country. You know, like there's so many people who don't know that Suriname is a country, and it's like, it's a country. You know, how does that just go unnoticed? But there are almost 200 countries, so some of them are going to be more obscure than others. But you visit them, and oftentimes you get like an extra dose of warmth from the people who live there, right? I think like, I love the reaction where you're going to somewhere that's not overcrowded, overvisited, but rather the opposite, and people are excited that you have their home on your radar, and that's a good feeling. And yeah, also just knowing that you're getting to see something that not many people see. You know, I think it's getting harder to come by unique experiences at a time where people just, you know, see a cool thing done online and then copy paste the formula, see what worked. Which, yeah, I get, but yeah, it's getting harder for things to be their own thing. It was a really fast flight between the two countries, like 45 minutes. The part that took a lot longer was both the center of Georgetown and its airport are about an hour away, as is the airport in the center of Paramaribo. I was a bit surprised when I learned that this is not actually the least visited country in South America. That's Guyana, which is funny because I feel like I know so many more Guyanese people, but that might just be a US thing. I think a lot of Suriname visitors come from the Netherlands, you know, Dutch speaking and all that. Either way, both countries do not get a lot of visitors. They're probably not too far apart from each other on that list. Okay, initial impressions of Paramaribo are quite nice. I'm staying in kind of the old town, downtown area. This area has some charm, and it feels really serene, you know? A lot of places you get to the center of town and it's chaos. You don't feel easy. Here, they kind of do. So, the history of Suriname in many ways actually runs parallel to Guyana's. It's almost as if they're alternate timelines of each other, where the main difference is whether you were colonized by the British or the Dutch. You know, even today, you throw the French in there, the British, the Dutch, and the French, and it's like the borders of the three Guyanas all owe their history to these three separate influences. If not for that, they might very much be the same country, they might very much be the same, but things took different turns. So, like Guyana, Suriname has a very fascinating set of demographics, cultures, and ethnic blends that come from that complicated history. About 15% of the country descends from the indigenous population that was here long before the Europeans arrived. Then, as you do in Guyana, you have those who were brought over from Africa as enslaved persons during the slave trade. And you have, you kind of have a couple groups of them. You have the Creoles, who mostly stayed along the coast, and when slavery was abolished, they were freed. And then you also had those who escaped enslavement, who then joined up with the indigenous peoples more inland, sought refuge in the rainforests, intermarried, and they became known as the Maroons. And then after that, you had almost the same thing you had going on in Guyana happen here, where slavery gets abolished and there's still a lot of plantations and things. So instead, Indians are brought over to work, not as slaves, but as indentured laborers. Kind of feels like a thin difference, but that's how it went. So as a result, you have the Afro-Surinamese and the Indo-Surinamese, and those make up the two largest populations here today, as it is in Guyana. Keep in mind that I am oversimplifying quite a bit. You know, people being brought over as laborers meant that a lot more men were coming here than women, and so a lot of intermarrying took place, a lot of, people of mixed descent. Now, a couple things that are different. There's the Chinese population is much smaller. It's still here, because China is doing its thing everywhere. But compared to Guyana, you know, a lot of Chinese people came as laborers, but they found that the conditions of work were so poor, and there was a lot of competition from Indians, from other groups of people, that not many of them stayed. What you will find here, more prominently though, is Indonesian, Javanese Surinamese people. Remember that the Dutch also had control of Indonesia, so when there was a demand for indentured laborers to come, that's one of the main places they turned. My running claim is that I can find Filipino food anywhere I go. I'm in Paramaribo, Suriname, and look here. We got satay, burgers, and what's that? Lumpia. Lumpia spelled the Dutch way. Of course, this is a bit of a cheat. The Southeast Asian food in Suriname is more Indonesian because both countries were under Dutch occupation for a long time, but still, I'm gonna take credit for it. I'm in Suriname, in one of the least visited countries in South America, and I found me some Filipino food. So the foods in Guyana and Suriname are in many ways quite similar. You've got a lot of Indian influence, some Chinese, some Caribbean and local indigenous tastes. But one thing that's different is that Surinamese food has a much stronger Indonesian influence. Okay, we are in Paramaribo. What do? We eat. I don't know if this is a unsatisfying answer, because it's like if you go to
a boring place, if you go to a place that's just like the small town in the middle of nowhere, people will tell you the thing to do here is to eat. You've at least got this barbecue joint that everybody likes. But then, if you go to like Tokyo or Paris, what's the thing to do there? You eat. There's all these award-winning restaurants, things you've got to try, unique street foods. So, kind of a universal answer, not an indicator of whether or not a place is great or boring, but an honest answer. So, Surinamese food is really good and really interesting and really hard to find anywhere outside of Suriname. It's just not widely known outside of its home country. There's one exception to this, though, and that would be the Netherlands. There's a strong tie between these two places. And over there, if you see Surinamese food, you're going to see it probably listed on the storefront as Surinamese African or Surinamese Indian, Surinamese Indonesian. If you don't know, it might just seem like, fusion food, people combining things for the sake of combining them. But if you do know, it's because the cuisine here has so many contributing backgrounds that, listing them actually does give you an idea of which influences you're going to see at that restaurant.
Alright, so we are here in Suriname, in Paramaribo, which is how I learned the city is actually pronounced. I've been calling it Paramaribo in my head the whole time, because that's what it looks like written down. But nah, say it with me. Paramaribo. 50 countries. This is country number 50 for me, which is really cool and weird, and I gotta acknowledge, comes as a result of a ton of privilege. One way to look at it is, the official count of how many countries there are in the world varies depending on what you do with a few controversial circumstances, but the numbers I usually get are 193, 195, and 197. So 50 means I've seen a quarter of them. But that's only accurate if I word it the way I did, a quarter of the countries that are out there. I don't think I can say that I've seen a quarter of the world now, because, great example, India. I was there last summer for the first time, and I just checked out Kolkata. I saw Kolkata, and that was it. I don't really think I can say I've seen a quarter of the world if I've only seen, a sliver of its most populated country. Counting countries is kind of weird, because not all countries are evenly weighted, On the flip side, I've been to Liechtenstein, one of the smallest countries in the world. Seriously, somebody showed me a map of the country, and it was drawn with Disneyland-like detail, where it was like every house almost seemed painted on there. But I went there, and it was not drastically different from Switzerland, really. Two had a lot in common. They're both really expensive. And so what qualifies as a country, the lines between countries, are so totally arbitrary. And then if you look at places like West Africa, like Southeast Asia, you'll see that if you were to map things based on people's ethnicities or the languages they speak, there are dozens and dozens of different people groups in this area that is represented by 4 countries. That said, I count countries, and I'm probably going to continue counting them because I'm human and I get curious about how many I've been to, and when I hit a nice round number like 50, it feels pretty cool. It was a good day. Thank you for coming with me to my 50th country, Suriname. Kind of an adventurous day, but also a really relaxed one, and that's a great combo, isn't it? I love my obscure countries. I don't even like calling them obscure countries though, because people live here and they deserve to be seen. Love travel deep down. I probably will and will continue to do so, but I'm still working on finding that pace that works for me, and I think I'm getting there. Made big strides on that this past year, just figuring out the work, family, travel rhythm, and I'm still learning it, and I think the next direction is a slight step back. Not a big one though. More places to see, but all in due time. Alright, time to pack up and get back to Guyana. Peace.